Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is Hemalata from Ponvidya Ashram. In today's session, we are going to see Geography Motions of the Earth lesson. Earth rotates and revolves. So these two actions makes the Earth to change its climate and to vary the Earth to day and night. What is rotation? Rotation is the movement of the Earth on its axis. The movement of the Earth on its axis is called as rotation. That is, Earth is rotating itself. And what is revolution? The movement of the Earth around the Sun in a fixed path or in its orbit, which is an imaginary line, is called as revolution. First, we will see the rotation of the Earth in detail. The axis of the Earth, which is an imaginary line, makes an angle of 66.5 degrees with its orbital plane. This plane formed by the orbit is known as the orbital plane. The Earth receives light from the Sun. Due to the spherical shape, that is the geoid shape of the Earth, only half of the Earth gets light from the Sun at a time. The other portion will not receive the light. The portion facing the Sun experiences day, while the other half away from the Sun experiences night. The circle that divides the day from the night on the globe is called as the circle of illumination. This circle does not coincide with the axis. So if you see this picture, you can clearly see that the axis does not coincide with the circle of illumination. What is circle of illumination? The part which divides the earth into day and night. That illumination imaginary line is called as circle of illumination. So this both things does not coincide with each other. Why? Because the earth is rotating in an angle of 66.5 degree. The earth takes about 24 hours to complete one rotation around its axis. The period of rotation is known as the Earth day. This is the daily motion of the Earth. Yes, we have 24 hours a day, isn't it? So that 24 hours is the rotation of the Earth to complete on its axis for one day. So this is Earth day. What would happen if the Earth did not rotate? The portion of the Earth facing the Sun would always experience day, thus bringing continuous warmth to the region. The other half would remain in darkness and be freezing cold all the time. So life would not have been possible in each extreme conditions, isn't it? As the Earth is rotating in its axis, the sunlight is equally being distributed around all the places, and when it's heated up in the daytime, then it will be cooled down in the night time. So this makes it not too much of heat, and it's making it in a good balancing position of climate. Now we will see about revolution. The second motion of the earth around the sun in its orbit is called revolution. It takes 365 quarter days, that is 1 year, to revolve around the sun. We consider a year as consisting of 365 days only and ignore 6 hours for the sake of convenience. So 6 hours saved every year are added to make one day 24 hours over a span of 4 years. Yes, you all know that the surplus day is added to the month of February. Thus, every fourth year, February is of 29 days instead of 28 days. Such a year with 366 days is called a leap year. Yes, are you all clear that our earth rotates on its own axis, and also it is revolving around the sun. Both the actions have been done by the earth at a same time. Okay, the revolution has been taken 1 year, that is 365 quarter days. That quarter which is not calculated for 1 year and kept aside. So after 4 quarters together, that is 6 hours together, 6 into 4 makes 24. So 24 hours was added into the year, that is 1 day was added, and it makes 366 days, which is called as a leap year. This day is added to February as 29th day of February every 4 year. If you see this picture, it is clear that the earth is going around the sun in an elliptical orbit. So if you notice that the earth is inclined in the same direction, the earth is always inclined in the same direction, and also it is revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit. The orbit is in elliptical form, not in a round form, it is in elliptical form. A year is usually divided into summer, winter, spring, and autumn seasons. Seasons change due to the change in the position of the earth around the sun. If you see this picture, you can see that on 21st of June, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. The rays of the sun are falling directly on the Tropic of Cancer. As a result, these areas receives more heat during that time. The areas near the poles receives less heat as the rays of the sun are slanting on those areas. The North Pole is inclined towards the sun, and the place beyond the Arctic Circle experience continuous daylight for about 6 months during this period. Since a large portion of the northern hemisphere is getting light from the sun, it is summer in the regions north of the equator. If you take the equator, it will be divided as northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, isn't it? So during the 21st of June, due to the slanting position, the northern hemisphere receives the direct sun rays and it will get the maximum amount of heat. While it is rotating, the northern hemisphere, the Arctic Circle, totally been opened to the sun rays. So it receives sun rays throughout 6 months. There won't be any night on that 6 months in Arctic Circle. So in the northern hemisphere during this time, they will have longest day and the shortest night. Not in the Arctic Circle. In the Arctic Circle, they will have only daytime throughout the 6 months. But at the other portions of the northern hemisphere, they will have the longest day and shortest night. In the southern hemisphere, at the time of the northern hemisphere receiving the direct sun rays, the southern hemisphere will receive the slanting rays of the sun, which means they will not get more heat from the sun rays. So during that time, the conditions of the southern hemisphere will be reversed. So it is winter season there. The nights are longer than the days. This position of the earth is called the summer solstice. On 22nd December, the Tropic of Capricorn receives direct rays of the sun as the south pole tilts towards it. As the sun rays falls vertically at the Tropic of Capricorn, that is 23.5 degrees south, a larger portion of the southern hemisphere gets light during this period. Therefore, it is summer in the southern hemisphere with longer days and shorter nights. The reverse happens in the northern hemisphere, isn't it? This position of the earth is called the winter solstice. When the northern hemisphere is receiving the sun rays directly, it is called as summer solstice, and The southern hemisphere getting the sun rays directly is called as winter solstice. The summer solstice happens in 21st June, while the other winter solstice happened during 22nd of December. On 21st of March and September 23rd, direct rays of the sun falls on the equator. At this position, neither of the poles is tilted towards the sun. So, the whole earth experiences equal days and equal nights. This is called an equinox. While changing of the sun rays, direct sun rays from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, this happens at an exact date of 21st of March and September 23rd. So during this changing of the direct sun rays happens from the north to southern hemisphere and from southern hemisphere to northern hemisphere. At a point, the direct sun rays will be at the top of the equator. The direct sun rays will fall directly on the equator. So this experience will be called as equinox. During the equinox, both the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere will have equal days and equal nights. So there will be no longer and shorter nights or no longer nights and shorter days. So there will be equal days and equal nights in the equinox period. On 23rd of December, it is autumn season in the northern hemisphere and spring season in the southern hemisphere. The opposite is the case on 21st of March, when it is spring in the northern hemisphere, the autumn in the southern hemisphere. So it will be in the reverse form. When on 23rd September, if it is autumn in the north, then it must be spring in the southern. The reverse will happen as the sun rays, everything is happening in the reverse form, that is northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere will be in a reverse form. So thus you find that there are days and nights and changes in the seasons because of the rotation and revolution of the earth respectively. So both the actions are responsible, both rotation and revolution, both are very important for the earth to create days and nights and to change in the seasons. Seasons are also very important for earth, so that only we can experience different kind of seasons, climatic changes, everything in the earth. So both are very important. Now we will do a small recap what we had studied in this chapter. So in this recap, I will read the definitions from the book. Okay, rotation. What is rotation? Rotation is the movement of the earth on its axis. Revolution. Revolution is the movement of the earth around the sun in a fixed path or orbit is called revolution. Orbital plane. The axis of the earth in an angle of 66.5 degree is called as orbital plane. The circle of illumination. The circle that divides the day from night on the globe is called as the circle of illumination. The earth day. The period of rotation of the earth for one day is called as earth day. Leap year. So every year a quarter, that is 6 hours of a year, will be saved together and it will be calculated every fourth year, which is added as one day in February, that is 29th of February is added. So this is called as leap year. In leap year there will be 366 days. The summer solstice. The northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun and the rays of the sun falls directly on the Tropic of Cancer. This is called as summer solstice. Winter solstice. The Tropic of Capricorn receives direct sun rays of the sun as the south pole tilts towards it. It is called as winter solstice. equinox. Neither of the poles is tilted towards the sun, so the whole earth experiences equal days and equal nights. This is called as equinox. Autumn and spring of the earth. On 23rd September, it will be autumn season on northern and spring season on the southern hemisphere. When it is 21st March, the opposite will be in the case, and the northern hemisphere will be spring and the southern hemisphere will be in the autumn season. Finally, the rotation and the revolution. So the days and nights and changes in the seasons happens because of the rotation and revolution of the earth respectively. Both are important for these actions which are happening in the earth. Thank you.